Kia ora, e te whānau. Okay, look, um, it's about getting on with life. So, what did I do today? We went to Kaumatua lunch, and actually, I was quite surprised because I was thanked by whānau for all the mahi that I've done and for campaigning and blah blah blah. It was a real surprise. Actually, I wasn't even going to go. I said to my husband, "Oh, you go, I'll stay home." And he said, "No, no, let's go out." So I'm really pleased I did, and there were some gifts that was given to us. So really appreciate that. Um, but that's a closed book chapter now, as I mentioned in my previous live, that I've closed the book on that political chapter. I'm always going to be political, right? Nothing's going to stop me because it's just in my DNA. And it's about keeping an eye on things and holding those decision makers to account. And we have two Māori um, ward councillors for Hamilton City Council, and so there's huge mahi out there for them, huge accountability. And I don't even know if this is a good time to be a councillor because I've done some research around the motu as to where debt is sitting. So if I can just share some of the research that I've done, just for now, I guess, we have to fully understand, right, just what the issues are, um, just where our finances sit. Because to me, debt equals homelessness. Councils all around the country are pushing their citizens, the people they represent, into financial hardship or even bankruptcy due to escalating council debts and associated rate increases. So when I was campaigning for the Māori ward, it was sitting at 19.9%. That was the rate increase, which was about $600 extra that my children have to pay for their for their rates owning their own home. And it went down to 16.6, I think it is, percent, which is still, $500 plus, on the average rate. So it's still a lot of money. And that will continue to be the same for the next 4 years, right? So every year, every financial year, that'll go up by another 500, up by another 500. So I'm preparing my own children who have worked really hard to be homeowners, right? And their eyes are wide open. And during my campaign, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to open people's eyes. And, I was a generation that didn't have the reo. It was taken from my father and taken from me, but we were the generation that fought for our children to have te reo. And my children were just slightly older than the koanga kura kaupapa ones, only by a few years. We fought for koanga reo. At the time, it was just our aunties, teaching our children their mokopuna te reo, and we use crayons that the primary school didn't need, how you get them down to little bits. So crayons and chalks, and we made our own resources. So by the time my children were ready for primary school, there was no kura kaupapa. It took another few years before kura kaupapa, like another 5 years. By that time, it was pretty much too late for my children because we're at that age. But anyway, having te reo and missing out on te reo has been a huge take. But that was a fight worthwhile, even though my children, unfortunately, bar one, missed out on that opportunity. But and saying all of that, they are homeowners, and I want to actually just show you just through it's just basic research. It's not heavy research, and don't quote me on this. You know, do your own research, I guess is what I'm saying. But um, around the country, you're looking at Auckland Council moving into $12 billion in debt. Christchurch Council looking at nearly $9 billion in debt. Hamilton City Council, you're looking at going by my research, 2.8 billion, just under three. It was stated in the long-term plan that it was 2.4. Add another 400 million onto that. Wellington City Council, you're looking at $3 billion there. Tauranga, $3 billion there. Dunedin, 2 billion. Kapiti Coast, 3.5 billion. Horowhenua, 3 billion. Rotorua Lakes, 5.5 billion, and so on. So, you know, I'm talking the billions, right? And that's just an overview. Okay. Please put some comments up, because if you're not commenting, I feel like I'm talking to myself. But I'm going to continue to expose what's happening, because the future, call me a party pooper or whatever, you're better to be informed and be prepared than be ignorant, and then all of a sudden we're all in shit street, right? So, and that's what I've campaigned on, and I know people didn't get that. I know that I was talking about stuff that people didn't understand, but it was so important to me to share it. I mean, that was my ticket, to state that there are two camps in councils. And as councillors, you have to choose which camp you sit in, the spending camp or the one that's trying to stop the bleed. I mean, it's real serious. You cannot continue to increase rates that are only paying for the interest. It's not even paying for the debt. So here's the kicker, right? And here's where all councillors, including our Māori councillors, and Maria, who's a beautiful wahine, when she goes in there, and I've pre-warned her actually that you're going in there and there's going to be two camps. There are no fence sitters in this process, because you've got to make decisions, right? Decisions to spend or decisions not to spend. And there are councillors that will spend and councillors that won't spend. So I'm going to read this article so you understand who are the spenders and who are the ones that are trying to pull back, who are the ones that are actually thinking and acting on behalf of their ratepayers, and those that actually think that, well, are they thinking about the ratepayers? Because from my perspective and my children's perspective, they have to really adjust their budgets. I mean, we're looking at whānau that might have to downsize to save their homes, which means sell off and buy a smaller home, or sell their property and buy maybe not as flash a property or whatever. These are things that they've worked really, really hard for. But it's absolutely imperative that they understand, especially what the next 4 to 5 years look like. And it is unfortunate that I didn't get in there. But, unfortunately, politics is a popularity contest. And in Māori politics, the tribe has an important role to play. And if the tribe doesn't feel that you're the right person for the job for whatever reason, then the tribe is swayed by other things. And that's unfortunate too, because my skill sets, I believe, which has been created over decades actually, and because I'm a researcher, because I know the processes, because I've worked in that space. But I'm trying to say, that robot, I'm showing my age now, and Lost in Space, and he used to go, warning, 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 warning. Remember that robot? Well, that's me. I'm going, warning, 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 warning. So I can only do so much, and I'm just fortunate that I have, platforms that I can share my whakaaro on, because I still feel like I am contributing, I guess is the word. So anyway, I'm going to read this article. It says big divisions remain as Hamilton City's 10-year plan is passed, and that was only passed on Monday. So what does it say? Continued strong divisions over finances have seen Hamilton councillors vote for adoption of the city's 10-year plan, which is called the long-term plan, with just 8-5 majority. Yesterday's vote, and this was written on the 5th, and we're now at the 8th. Yesterday's vote would likely have been closer at 8-6 if absent Councillor Ewan Wilson on a pre-planned overseas trip had attended. Those voting for the plan included Mayor Paula Southgate, her deputy Angela O'Leary, and councillors Anna Casey Cox, Louise Hutt, Keish Naidor Roof. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Moko Tawariki. So Moko Tawariki is the current Māori Ward Councillor, Sarah Thompson, and Maxine Van Oosten. So these are the people that have voted for the long-term plan, which is spend, spend, spend. So we are going to go from $2.8 billion to $6.4 billion and climbing come the 2034. So just keep those numbers. I'm not a numbers person, but just keep those numbers in mind, because we all know how to add and subtract, right? And we all know when we're spending outside our means. And I, hand on heart, am saying that the council is spending outside their means. Potential mayor candidates is Tim McIndoe. Now, I've met Tim during general election campaigns, and he's lovely. He's really lovely, and I'm really pleased that he's retired from central government and is now on our Hamilton City Council. So against were councillors Andrew Bidu, Mark Donovan, Tim McIndoe, Emma Pike, and Jeff Taylor. Now, Southgate, the mayor, insisted the plan was a fair and reasonable outcome. Now, I watch Rawiri Waititi talk about the word reasonable, and this is when you start putting on your legal hat, fair and reasonable, and in legal terms, fair and reasonable is what the ordinary person would think is fair and reasonable. So when you're stating fair and reasonable, you're stating what the ordinary man or person or citizen would class as fair and reasonable. When Rawiri Waititi was speaking, it was about the police and what the police, being a police officer with his portai on and all his authority, would think was reasonable. And so they're both legal terms, okay? So depending on who the audience is and who you're claiming is fair and reasonable, in this case, it's the ratepayer. Southgate insisted the plan was a fair and reasonable outcome in trying times. Eek. Eek. This is not a budget of pet projects or extras. When we're going to end up with a $6.5, nearly $7 billion debt. Yeah, again, that's her perspective of what is fair and reasonable. Is it fair and reasonable for those that are benefiting from those projects? Now, we can say it's ratepayers that we're benefiting from those projects. Like I've said, in other lives in my community, my rates were going to their mates. I'm talking about Paula Southgate's mates. My rates were going to the wealthier end of town. I still have to pay my rates. Now our rates are being increased by another $600 or less now because they've brought it down to 16.6%. So, just over $500 extra a year that we have to find, and it's only paying the interest of the debt. Anyway, but Taylor, a potential mayoral candidate, said it failed to reduce the scale of council's operations enough to make it more financially sustainable. The 8-5 split reflected divisions during last month's plan deliberations. Comments from opponents yesterday again highlighted debt-related risks from the approved approach. They failed last month by a slim margin to get a majority support for an extra 100 million plus in staff and consultant cost reductions over a decade. So basically, there's a few things that this article goes into. Yeah, I guess the crux of it, really. Hang on. Council's financial director, Tracy Musty, noted that was during the deliberations. A new Audit New Zealand report highlighted the plan's current projected headroom that obviously isn't as large as we'd like it to be. Taylor said there could be credit rating downgrades and higher interest costs if debt to revenue limits were breached. All it takes is a black swan. So, employees meeting more debt headroom in the plans earlier. So I don't know what the term headroom means, but I think it might be buffer. It's like a buffer, is what I'm assuming. So what the 5 or 6 councillors are saying, and it's going to be interesting to see which side of the tipu Maria is going to sit on. I did send information to her. I did say this is a serious matter. And, as councillors, right, and as decision makers, like this is forever in media reports, it's in council reports on what you voted for and what you didn't vote for. So Moko Tauriki is forever going to go down in history as voting for the debt and the continuous building of debt, which for me has a major red flag and major concerns because that continuous hike of rates, the continuous hike of debt, and this is what one of the councillors saying, all it takes is a black swan event, a worsening economy, and we're in deep trouble. He noted, and I think it's Taylor that they're talking about, he noted, for example, how new pauses on Kainga order housing projects in Hamilton could cut development contributions revenue. McIndoe, another potential mayoral candidate, also worried about financial risks associated with not cutting costs more. I mean, we are in a position where we have very little room to manoeuvre. Any unforeseen significant downturn would have drastic consequences for all of us. Donovan said he'd heard from some ratepayers that the council looks like a boat full of holes and heading towards an iceberg. Eek. Pike felt the council was scarily close to breaching debt to revenue caps. Van Oosten, however, said our council isn't broke and we're not wasting money, noting the Audit New Zealand report suggested council was in a good overall position. Well, it's really, it's, I don't know, we've got to change our mindsets, right? It's like going to the bank and continuously getting a loan, and the bank said, how much do you want? How much do you want? Oh, you're looking all right. How much do you want? How much? Oh, you've got enough money from rates to pay the interest. How much do you want? And just not saying no or not saying when, to stop giving that money over. Now, what happens, and this is the kicker, and this is the real issue for me, what happens is that there are 61,000 properties in Hamilton, Kirikiri. Each one of those properties are rateable. If one property cannot afford to pay that rates, then there's a mortgagee sale on that property. End of story. Doesn't matter if you own it, doesn't matter if you rent it. If you rent it, then the owner's going to keep on putting up your rent to cover the increase in rates. So homeowners and renters are in this sinking boat together, and there's going to be a lot of whānau that are going to go down. A lot of whānau in the next 5 years, a lot of whānau are going to go down. They're going to either have their home mortgages sale or they cannot afford the rent. So they're going to find themselves homeless. So we think we have a homeless problem now. We think we have a housing crisis now. It is only but going to get worse, unfortunately. So I'll just carry on with the comments of these councillors. Thompson said bigger staffing cuts would have been unsustainable and warned if services were reduced too much, the city will just look like a mess. Okay, let's get the cleaner and the chef in, right? Let's keep on getting the cleaner and the chef in because that's a priority. Pretty much is what she's saying. But worried services reductions could be a slippery slope to privatisation. Now, that's another concern, right? Oh, get on. I'm dead and alive. No. Yeah. Oh. So, and that's always a worry, right? You defund public services, they don't work, people get angry, and it ends up being handed over to private business who charge the public through the roof. I mean, we've seen this scenario time and time again. And the cynical person in me says, is that the real agenda? Is that the real agenda? So, we've just been through a by-election, and I won't be putting my hand up again for Hamilton Kirikiri, but what I'm saying to all whānau around all councils, because not just Hamilton, is that be careful on who you choose to represent you. Southgate stressed the plan reflected a range of significant new savings, taking into account community concerns about earlier proposed 19.9% rise for this year. It also reflected how rates were needed to run and grow Hamilton appropriately. She said, we are the fastest growing modern city in New Zealand. Do we want to be a good city or a run-down city? Well, what we don't want is your citizens, Paula and Angela, being homeless, mortgagee sales, and that's where we're heading. So anyway, whānau, this is just too important. Yes, I know that I won't be running formally, but I certainly will still be raising all the issues. Is there any questions? There are no comments. If there are no comments, then I'm going to sign out, and I'll catch up with you again when I do another live. Okay, kia pai tōra, ka kite anō, kia ora.